Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's project is going to focus on a few things that need fixing today. The first is I have a replacement bush for the crank handle. You can see how much play there is in that, and as a result of that, the fan actually hits the end of the crank. So that's a problem. The next thing, so in order to do that, obviously I want to get the radiator out of the way. And that will also enable me to access these nuts that are on these U-bolts here. They are the missing cotter pins, and I want to get those resolved. So that's really the activity for today. I've already drained the radiator. You might be able to see in through there. I've got a new petcock for the bottom of the radiator that was leaking before, so I've fixed that leak. And now, so I'll take the radiator out. Replace that bush. That might be a bit challenging. They're often at this age, they've been in there long enough to seize in there, so I'm expecting a bit of a fight there. So yeah, so without too much further ado, we'll get this hood off, and then we can get started. Yeah, so the hood just lifts off. It's just it just sort of rests there, and we'll put that somewhere safe. Alright, so there's a threaded rod here that holds the radiator in, and it looks like it's backed into the cowl with a look here. I'll get my light so I can see a bit better. So you can see in there. So that I think that's just going to, we just need to back that off, and that should take some of the spread out of that. Okay. Now, in order to get into here, I am wanting to make sure that these are not going to get sacrificed. So I'll just undo these and get them gently out of the way. And lo and behold, just noticed something when I've taken that down. We have got some pretty good chafing on that cotton insulator there. So before I set that back on there, I'm going to take a look at what I can do to prevent that happening any further. That one's looking much better. Alright, much happier about that. That removal, I've got an 11/16 here, which is a little bit too big. It's more like a 5/8 or maybe even a 9/16. Right, so this is your these are 5/8. There we go. Okay. The rod's turning, which is a bonus. I need to get some vice grips onto that. Okay, so you get to see a little bit of what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Oh, this one's a fighter. Oh, crikey. Oh, come on, fellas. Blow ya. Just plier action at this point. Don't need the gripping action. We have progress, it's just slow progress. I'm not going to run this all the way out. Get it there for the most part because I still want a little bit of support as I have to get these, there we go, I can turn that almost by hand. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to undo radiator hose, and get in there and undo radiator hose there, and I'll also undo this clamp down the bottom here, and then literally one on each side of these. Okay, let's try that. Screwdriver. Yeah, that clamp was not tight. Here we go on this one. But, you know, pretty weakly done up. Okay, it's pretty inflexible. Right. Okay, cotter pins out. What we don't want to do is launch the needle nose pliers into the side of the brass. Got to try and get this tapped out first a little bit. Can't get the smoothest pull on this cotter pin. Let's have a look. See if I can get in behind that. Get a little tap. Really ought to move the toolbox a little closer. But I'm getting some good exercise doing this. Progress. Beauty. Out she comes. Get on this side. What have we got? Exact same idea here. Do not, although this one's orientated a better way, so get a straight pull without it wanting to get out of control and hit the radiator. There we go. Much better. Now these look like, I'm going to go with 1/2 inch. Need more practice. This is 9/16. Okay, I'm going to go super extension. Happier with that. All right. So, castellated nut holds down a little cup which has a spring underneath it, and it looks like that's all that's holding that down. There could be something a bit compliant underneath, hopefully. Okay, there we go. All right. Now we'll bring in here. I need to get that hose clamp in there undone. I'm going to need a stubby screwdriver for that. I'll leave you there for a second while I go get that. So the reason for the stubby is that you can see it comes out at this angle, and I'm almost hard up against the side of the side of the radiator there. So I'll bring you in hopefully this way. It's not going to work. Oh, there we go. The shot's a bit crooked. Sorry, sorry people. Give me a crooked shot. One thing I can depend upon with this car is that none of the fasteners are done up tight. I'm not saying it's a good thing by any stretch, but I've not had, touch wood, I've not had to, in fact I can touch wood pretty much anywhere on this car. Touch wood, it's never been something that's brought me or slowed me down particularly. It's just something that I really need to get on top of as I continue to make this more of a road driver than a trailer queen. Alright, so this clamp is pretty rubbish. It hasn't got a captive nut on the end, it wants to turn, so that's why I need two hands here. Alright. Alright, so one thing that might be useful to do, might be useful to undo these ones as well. We've got good access. I want to, I suppose, open up a degree of freedom on this hose setup, because the radiator, I don't know that it can come forward particularly easy. It's got to come off these pegs first, so it's got to lift up. That's its first action. Might be able to maneuver it forward to get it off here first. It's probably got to come the best part of an inch though. Anyway, we'll see. So let's give ourselves half a chance and get these off. Oh, I should have some gloves on. Hang on, I need gloves. Okay, back in there. So I might be, I suppose, a bit confused as to why. I don't know, I feel like I'm seemingly obsessed with just putting a pair of gloves on to work on a car. It's not the case. I just have, I'm the type of, let's call me mechanic in inverted commas, who gets every manner of damage to his hands. And even though these aren't particularly thick, I usually finish a job with without nicks, cuts, crap in my skin. And yeah, so it's just a personal preference of mine to do this. And at first it was kind of I wouldn't say annoying, but you don't have the sensors that you do without gloves on. You know, for getting that fiddly nut on a bolt or whatever. But it's just practice. Really doesn't want to come off that way. Okay, so got that able to turn. That's good. So we've broken the rubber to brass there, which is good. Which means I'm actually going to turn this around. I'm going to have a crack at getting that one off. Why not, eh? If nothing else, I'll get these clamps off, give them a clean up with the wire brush. And they look like they've been here a while. Pretty much unloved. Again, no captive nut, and there's a bit of a fight. Okay, let's have a look. There we go. Okay, what is this made of? It's pretty corroded. That's giving us a fair chance there. I'm going to go back up to here and undo that rod. Looking for other points of attachment. I wonder if this can come out. I'll leave that there. Okay, so we've got a headlight tube, a headlight gas supply, if you like, that runs through the rad on both sides. That needs to come out, and I'll show you what I mean. So, down here, on both sides, it runs directly through that radiator, down to a little three-piece junction. Where it is supposed to go, I'll show you with the light. See that arrangement on, see the little point to it here? Okay, so there's a T-piece. So you'd have the main go onto there, and then you'd feed the headlight off that, and across the other side. And you can see it's been munted pretty badly by the fan by the looks. So this copper pipe is crushed badly. When I get the radiator off, I'll see if there's something I can do about getting that off and replacing it, because number one, it looks much better than having these propane rubber hoses there. I will need a soft hose, of course, but it'll look better than that. So I'm going to put you down while I try to get those off. They shouldn't be too much of a hassle. All right, so what I was able to very quickly do here is break what looks like a fish tank air hose T-junction, and it's left half of it behind in there. Not too much of a concern, honestly. I can resolve that, so that just needs to come out of there. It smells pretty strong of fuel under here. Okay, we're going to get all of that fed through. Right, it's your gas headlights disconnected. Now this is going to need two hands, and I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see, but I'll sit you up over here like this. Oops. Okay, that might work. You know what I want to do here? I'm going to consult my Henry Ford manual here. This apparently is the Bible. I've used it a couple of times, but it seems to cater much better for a newer model than it does mine. But I'll get back to you if there's any insights here. But yeah, I was thinking along the lines of whether it would be better, again, to give us that degree of freedom, if I took this housing off. Oh geez, I had glove blown out. Take this housing off, you would then at least be able to rotate this forward, maybe forward up and out. Failing that, I'm going to need to break the seal on this one here and see if I can't get the seal off down here further, and then I might be able to get that out. Not sure what to try first. I think I might try the latter first. I'll put you down for that. Okay, the decision has been made. I'm going to take both. Right out of the way there. I'm going to take both housings off. I'll take this one off, which will allow it to go forward, and I'll take this housing off. As something that contributed to that decision was, I thought I'll see how tight these are. And the first one I put on, it literally just cracked off like that. It was just loose. And this is not staged. I'm going to see how tight that one is in front of the camera, having never before tried to crack it. And honestly, this needs to probably be the mantra. If there's a bolt, just bloody undo it and see how tight it is. Okay, so we'll get that on there. That's just loose. So I'm just going to need to assume that every single bolt on this machine is loose. And let this not be a channel that just complains about loose bolts when we're working on Model T Fords. It feels like I've started a bit of a trend of complaining. I'll have to take a look at that. Alright, so that's loose. Note to self, don't blow those gaskets out. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, let's see. Okay. Not bad. And at some point that snapped off. Okay, I can see a light through there, but that's the state of that. Not great. And so you can see, yeah, that's not great. I mean, it's being held on by four threads or 5 threads. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. Let's get in this side. Oops, sorry. Good camera work one-handed. You can see this is coming off already. I can see a gap opening up there. Okay, that's out. Right. Now let's see what we got. I'll just put that down with the other ones there so I don't lose them. Right, let's give this a little tap. Awesome. What's that shit? I think it feels like RTV. Something like that. Alright, the gasket survived. It's awesome, and that's going to make things a lot easier. Alright, I reckon I'm going to be able to get that off now. Let's set you back up over here. Less zoom, folks. You don't need. Let's just do 2 times there. All right. Folks, that is a dream, the way that came off. It's bloody brilliant. Okay, let's get in there and have a look. All right. So what do we got here? We've got a busted glove. Honestly, these gloves are a different brand to the ones I'm used to, and they're shit. All right, back to work. So to get this off, we need to take this cotter pin out. Shouldn't be too hard, it's just sort of bent over in a pretty lame way. Take this little pin, this pin out. Then that should disengage from this bit, and you can see this is what's been happening as it runs, because it's at such a crappy angle. You can get into the timer there too. Might do that for a little look-see. What I want to make sure, and it's a good opportunity while I'm in here, is to just check the linkages off the steering wheel to make sure that at full retard we are no worse retarded than top dead center, so that we get that full range of advance. So what I might try and do is get this pin off one-handed. Okay, hang on a sec, people. Hang on. Okay. Cotter pin out. Pin. Now I need a tap. Bit of a bend and some wear in that pin. Shouldn't be a problem. I'm not solving for that type of wear. I'm solving for this type of wear. So, and now we slide that out. Actually, I'll take this off here. It's got a little handle pouch there. Stops it hanging down. With a slide hammer, we get. There we go. Out comes the shaft. Now, inspecting the shaft. You know, I'm not going to put a micrometer on that, but it looks fine. Some, I'm not sure. No, that's fine as well. That's just been that little bit of play in that pin gives you that sort of a wear surface here. So now we've got great access here to unwind these, all four of them. Make sure our holes are clear for cotter pins. That's the bit that engages in the nose of the crankshaft there. And one other interesting, well, I find it interesting. We have a little leather fan belt on here. Now it's not what I'd call the most positive drive that we've got going on. I'll put it back on actually so you can see. It's pretty quaint actually. So that's the belt that gets driven off the crankshaft, and you can see I can turn the fan easily without that, and I can turn the belt without the crankshaft. Obviously, it's floppy as anything, but I'm pretty sure you don't need this this fan running at 2000 RPM. Take that off. I'm taking things apart like this because I don't want to get them damaged. If I slip while I'm trying to either drive something here or because what I have to do, let's see if I can get you right in there. You can probably see that's cast iron, and there's a very thin sleeve in there. Well, it's thin because it's all worn out, and that has to be driven. It has to be driven. I'm going to drive it this way with a hammer and a punch of sorts. Now, I'm sort of hopeful, but realistically, I don't know that that's going to come out very easily. I've seen a few people comment on how hard it is. Plan B is to get a hacksaw in here and to split or to hacksaw through that, maybe even a sawzall or something to what you effectively want to do is shrink it down so you can beat it out. But I'm going to try the beating out approach first. We'll see how we go. Okay, so one bright idea I had was just to make sure that the part that I'm replacing it with, number one, fits around the crank handle, and number two, fits within the allowed opening, which you're looking at right now. So dealing with that, here's the crank handle. Here's the new part, and look at the thick walls of that compared with this. You can see that. So does it meet the first criteria? Yes. There's only a little bit of play in that. Okay. And secondly, will it fit in here? I think so. Thirdly, why wouldn't I use this to drive out that other part? Let's see if it works. Where can I put you? Let's put you here. Can you see? Something's going on. Okay. Has that moved a millimetre? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to need to move you out of the way. I need to get a bit of a better swing at things. Okay, I've set you back up on this side. It's definitely moving. Oh. Voila. Well, that's interesting. I'll pull it in to show you this. Can't really absorb what we're looking at here. It's got a significant amount of wear there compared with there. So let's tape it right down. Now to get that. Okay. Now I've moved the fan out of the way. Better access, but I'm getting ready to drive the new bush in here, but what I'm noticing is that the bore of this is rough as guts. So what I'm going to do is just give that a bit of a hone with a wheel cylinder hone, with the aim of making it a smoother fit. I know it's an interference fit, but it doesn't have to, actively fight you with significant scoring in there. So we'll see what happens there. I'll just set you up. Okay, got a bit of a catch pan underneath. Last thing I need is put that all over the garage floor. Oh. She's a pretty tight fit. This hone's supposed to be 19 mils. Let me see. Need to measure that. Yeah, that's an inch, 25 millimeters. So let's try that again. There you go. Bit more lubricant. Are we looking? I'll bring you in for a bit of a squiz. I'm going to run that for another minute or so, just to get the worst of those burrs off, the ones that are going to snag. Put a bit of tightening, that'll speed things up. Tightening down on this adjustment here puts spring pressure on the tool, so forces those feet out with greater force. So I'm using lubricant like this. It keeps the stones clean. It may seem counterintuitive that lubricant is going to help the process, but this is a very light oil, and the stones have much more prowess than the WD-40 does. So I think that's going to be me. I'm going to give this a bit of a clean out with brake clean. Yeah, that's about as much as I'm willing to do. I don't want to ruin the interference fit by grinding away too much. So, all right, let's go and get our bush and try to get it in. Okay, I thought prior to fitting this bush, I would just do a bit of a measurement here of the internal diameter versus the outside diameter. Okay, so I'm getting 25.2 pretty consistently, and let's see what this one is. Now that's 25.2. Oh, sorry, can't even see it. 25.27. Yeah, pretty consistently. 26, 27. Those are 29. So the point I suppose checking here is this is supposed to be a press fit, interference fit, so friction holds it in place. But there is an allowance that will give you the optimal fit. And what that means to say is the difference between the diameter here and this diameter here for a 1 inch diameter, which this is from 0.0254 millimeters to 0.63 millimeters. So as you can see, the difference between this and this, as I just measured it, was 0.07, 0.08, 0.09. So this isn't going to fit here. I have beveled the edge, so it'll start off on the right footing, but that's going to be way too tight. That's way too tight to be an interference fit. So I'm going to need to, what I'll probably just do is take some material off the outside of this uniformly. So I'll spin it up and just take a small amount of material off that. What I want to get it is within that range of 0.025 to 0.0635. I think those were the numbers. But in that range, not 0.07, 0.08 or 0.09. In fact, taking it at its greatest value, 0.09 would have been what it's got. So I'm going to just run that up now and come back and give this thing a go. All right, now because my lapel microphone ran out of battery while I was recording this, you're going to get the dubbed over version. So what you're seeing here is I've put the bush on my bench grinder. Actually, I've taken the bench grinder attachment off, wrapped some insulating tape around the shaft so that would fit on there, and taken it down to the exact size that I needed with just some sandpaper. So yeah, with the bench grinder spinning at its speed with some 120 grit paper, we've got what you see there. So it's a good fit into the shaft. So as you can see, I'm giving it a few taps here. It's actually going in reasonably well. So the thing to look out for, obviously, is you want it to be an interference fit. So so it doesn't turn within that part of the pan. Yeah. So as I'm hammering on this, it's obvious that if I hammer too hard, I'm going to mushroom the end of that bush over. So grab a piece of wood and then give it a few whacks and spoiler alert, it goes in with a moderate amount of hammering, which is I think what you want. So I've grabbed the block of wood and starting to give it some welly, as you can see. Now it wasn't ridiculously hard to get in, but as you can see, it's taking a fair bit of force to press that in there. So the benefit of doing that, obviously, is that if that bush ever needs to be pressed out again, it's not going to be incredibly difficult. I've seen some bushes on a few YouTube clips which have literally flared or peeled a piece of the outside surface off, and really wedged itself in there, needing a hacksaw to get it out. So that's the benefit of doing it that way. So really happy with that result. Alright, now for this part, you might have noticed right at the start that the spring on that crank handle was wrapped around and down the handle of the crank. What you actually need to have on that crank handle is a hole for the spring to go into. So I bought a replacement spring because the one that I had did not have that part of the spring bent down. It was probably broken off or something. And also I'd looked all over that crank handle for the hole, which should have been there, but I couldn't find it for the life of me. That's the part of the spring which goes into the crank handle, so you need a hole for that to slip into, and it stops it from walking down or walking along the crank. Now, one of the other challenges is that where does the spring go? So for the purposes of trying to work that out, I took a photo of one of my club members' Model Ts yesterday, which I'll just quickly splice into the video now to give you an idea of where the spring sits on his. So here's the photo that I took yesterday, and you can see the location of the spring, and I did note that this was also pinned into the crank handle. So I still need to find the exact dimension. Time to go online, I think. Alright, so I jumped online and discovered that consensus was that the hole would be 5 inches away from the end of the crank handle. So I'm marking up here to drill the hole. So here is the finished product, a spring-sized hole in the shaft, ready to fit up. It's time to do a trial fitment now. So as you can see, the spring washer is there, and as I'm pushing the crank handle in, you'll note that the spring can now bind. When the spring binds, it limits the travel of that crank handle towards the engine there. So with the ratchet end connected and pinned, what we need to do is understand whether you're going to get positive engagement there. If not, the spring is actually in the wrong position. So a very important step before it all gets put together. So I did wind up buying a new pin for the shaft. The other one was pretty munted, and both the washer and the pin are both zinc plated. So I'm going to do something about removing that zinc plating and bluing them. I have been practicing the bluing. You might remember the split pin, the split pins that I had been bluing. Now they were Probably overkill in terms of how hot I made them. You don't need to have them glowing red, is what I've worked out from experience. You just have to get them to a point where they will go a little bit blue as you're heating it up, but certainly don't go much beyond that. So to get the zinc off, also just dunk them in hydrochloric acid, and that gets the zinc off really quickly. You don't need to go through the reverse electroplating kind of process. So if you don't have any hydrochloric acid, reverse electroplating works, but it's quick and easy just to splash with hydrochloric acid and get that zinc plating off. Okay, so here we have the finished product. It took about 10 minutes. It looks much more authentic. And here's the pin. And similar thing as the washer. It's a nice sort of bluey grey hematite protected coating. So really happy with how that turned out. Alright, so after that segue of bluing up some parts, it's now back to the trial assembly. So you can see we're just going full assemble, put the ratchet end on that shaft and see what we've got. Okay, so the assembly is as it should be, except for the pin not being pushed all the way in. Don't need that though. What you can see is the springs binding, but we don't have any engagement between the ratchet and the nose of the crank. That's a problem. So this is why I did a trial fitment. I suspected something like this could happen. The advice of it being 5 inches from the end of the crank handle to where the hole goes for the spring is clearly duff advice, but at least what we've got now is the ability to mark where a new hole should be based on how far away that ratchet end is from engaging in the snout or the front of the crank there. So all I need to do now is just measure the distance between the point on the crank where it needs to engage and the ratchet, and then transpose that onto the crank handle and drill a new hole. And as it turns out, it was 6 inches from the end, not 5 inches. Alright, so the second finished product, the second hole's been drilled, as you can see right there where I'm pointing, ready to now go to final assembly. Okay, so spring and washer go on first, then the ratchet end and the pin goes in. Okay, so ratchet's on, pin's in, and we have a win. The crank handle positively engages, springs back, just the way it was designed, which is pretty awesome. Really happy with that result too. Okay, the last thing to check here is just that there's adequate clearance between the fan blade and the ratchet end of that crank handle. As you can see, there's 2 or 3 mils there. I checked all the blades, all the same. So that's all good to go, back together. Alright, so the last thing to do here is a generous amount of grease within that bush to make sure that none of that shaft is contacting the bush on the inside. So it's just a matter of working it in there. Putting enough in, but not too much, and then cleaning up all of the excess. Okay, so I was almost to the point of putting it back together. Then I realised I wanted to have a look inside the timer and make sure that the timer was properly adjusted. It is running quite rough. I think it's a carburetor. I don't think it's timing, but while we're in here, may as well take a look. Now, so I've just taken the cover off. Actually, before I get into that, true to my philosophy of if I haven't undone things before in this car, to undo them, because things have been notoriously under-tightened. It was no different here. So the bolt holding the fan assembly on, which is supposed to be cinched up tight, and then the after the adjustment's been done, cinch that up tight. It's a pivot point. That was loose. Then There's a bolt here which holds the timer on. That was loose as it was surprising that it was even holding anything on. So then take a look in here. I was a little shocked. I'm not sure that's supposed to look like that. So I've got some cleanup to do here. In fact, you can almost see a tide mark there. Now I don't know if it's sat in water or whether water is from a cleaning job or something. There's no seal on this as such. It just goes here up against the block and rotates. So yeah, I think it's just it's been a bit of water ingress on that. So I'm going to clean that up and work out what lube, if any, needs to happen in here. Wow. Okay, so that's been very much labour of love cleaning that up, and there's a bit of a difference in there too. All those contact surfaces have been lightly sanded and degreased. Now I just need to, there's still some brake clean in there. So I'll let that evaporate out. I just need to work out now two things. I just have to confirm fan belt tension. I read one of the forums that the way to adjust the fan belt is to watch when the engine stops. The fan should stop immediately and not keep spinning under its own momentum. Doesn't sound terribly scientific. What that feels to me what you would do for a later model, which has a decent belt. I mean, this is what I'm contending with. It's a bloody leather belt with a seam, cotton, bloody sewn seam in it. So, and I got a little bit of grease on it. I'm getting it off anyway. Wipe that off. But yeah, so I'm skeptical that you need too much tension at all on this thing. It's just going to be a point of failure. So yeah, I'll do a bit more research on that. The other thing now I need to work out is there was quite a lot of baked sort of grease. There's a lot around here. It had all kind of gotten into the contacts in there, and there was some also kind of up in here. Now, surely they didn't have sort of what they call a dielectric grease back in 1914. I doubt whether they had that. I can't see why you would want any lubrication. You might want to oil inside that, maybe a bit of grease in there, and then very carefully kind of clean it off. I'll read up on it though, because there's... Okay, we have answers. So according to Ford, you just need to oil regularly, and you can see that there's a little access point here. Spring-loaded little cover. There's a little rusty spring in there, but that's a spring-loaded cover which will enable you to dribble oil in there. You know, there was a lot of debate. Some people actually pack this full of grease, arguing that if you use the right grease, and the recommendation is Vaseline, that it won't be too thick to stop the contact between your roller here and the contacts inside the timer. But one poster interested me, and it was probably more high maintenance endeavor, which is okay with me, is just to use automatic transmission fluid prior to a run, and just every time you take it for a run. So that'll work for me. I'm quite happy to reach down and with my little oil can and just put some ATF in there. I think that's the go. So what I'm going to do now is just check that the timer is timed properly. So as I mentioned, this shaft comes from the steering wheel, and this is the steering wheel control and ignition timing, and it goes into this locating point here, and held in place with a cotter pin, of course. And you'll see that this has been bent over time, and in fact bending it is the preferred way of making sure the timing is correct. So so what I need to do is find top dead center before we do any of this. I'll get that out of the way. Find top dead center, and to do that, in fact I can probably put the timer back together. top dead center. Take a number one spark plug out. Ignore that. It's really badly rusty, even though I gave it a good flush out. I am going to take the head off. There's indications on the back of the head when you take the floorboards out, and I'll show you before I do it. And there's a bit of a, I don't know, suspect. I don't know whether water's just sat there or there's an issue, but again, philosophy, the overarching philosophy. If I haven't touched a bolt on this thing, it gets touched because it's probably not properly tensioned. So that's what I'll do there. But yeah, I digress. So we take spark plug out, and I'm just going to turn the engine over until I get compression coming out here. I'm not going to do that one-handed, so you get to sit down somewhere while I do that. I'll sit you down here. Don't get too much in the way of me. Sorry to be rude. Right. All right, that'll be some compression now. Now I'm going to turn this until I get it exactly top dead. That's really important because top dead center is where you're timing it to. So the process is to, once you've got top dead center orientated, I'll get a bit of a screwdriver in here, is that you're going to move the timer until you hear the coil box for number one cylinder tremble coil. So you'll be just turning that and just making sure that the linkage is in the right place before you start that, and then that will tell you definitively. Right. So what am I doing? I'm getting my screwdriver. Yeah, so finger or thumb over that. Crank it until you start feeling compression. That's when you're starting to be on the compression stroke. And then when this is horizontal, 9:15, so 9:15, when that's horizontal, you're at top dead center. I have confirmed it by looking down the plug hole with a torch. Now, something I've discovered here which I need to address on the timer. So each of these leads, low tension leads, go back to respective coil, each coil, and you can see how they're secured there with those little brass screw downs. They're kind of a bit erratic in the way they've been done. See how that's at an angle? I'll try and point it out to you a bit better than that. Sorry. So that's at a bit of an angle there. That's kind of problematic. It's we've got some fraying going on here, but what's really bad is this one here. So that's up against the block, and every time this thing moves, it's rubbing and taking the crap off that. So that needs to be unscrewed and turned around and out of the way. And while I'm there, I'll fix that one up as well. It's not looking terribly good, so I'll get that out of the way now. Okay, so here's what we're up to. I've reinstated the timer, so that's back in. Fixed up the orientation of those wires so they're not going to rub anymore. Put the spark plug back in and connected it up. Now this is what we're trying to do. So it's still at top dead center as we needed it to be. So you turn it to the battery, and now that's number one's coil box going. What we're trying to do is find the point at which Now I've just connected, this is the inside the car where it's fully retarded. What we're trying to do is find the point here where you can hear the trembler coil stopped. So you're just trying to find that exact point where you've got spark starting. So obviously at this point, there we go. So that's a good approximation. So I've just been moving that back and forth in case you didn't see it. Now, this is where we see whether our adjustment's right. So that's inside the car at full retard, and you can see it's actually you know, a good 5 mils out. So this needs to be bent to compensate for that. So you can increase the bend here. I think that's probably as good a source of bending as any. I'll go and do that. I'll turn this thing off now. And we'll get a bit of bending in and see what we come up with. Right, now I've increased the bend here, and it's almost there. I've just gone a little bit too fast. I'm just going to take, let's see if I can do that here. Just going to take a little bit of that bend out, not too much. Does that go through? Yep. Now I'm, again, it's just a one-handed issue. Take my word for it. That's where we need it to be. So I'm going to there we go. I did move a little bit, but let's just try that again. So now that the control rod, importantly, we need to have, yeah, that's good. You know, I'm just going to leave that there, and just give that full welly and make sure we're clearing everywhere. That looks pretty good. So clearly what was, with the way that was configured, we weren't getting full advance. So if this was out of adjustment over on this side, we're not pulling it, we wouldn't have been able to pull it as far as it is now. It would have been here. So that's going to give us a bit more performance, I would hope, and hopefully some good running. So close this one out. I do want to just show you the final result here. So that's looking really good. I'm really happy with that. Note the pin. You know, it's not a shiny, bright new looking one. Everything looks in keeping. Even the washer at the front looks good. Spring action's perfect. Really happy with how that turned out. So I'm not going to put fan and everything back together now. Let's wrap up this episode, and we'll see you next time with getting it running, fan back on, radiator in. I suppose a little more of a teaser here for you. I did buy, we've got some new rad hoses. This is a bag of Mercedes-Benz gear, suspension gear. So yeah, I've got some new rad hoses, because if you look at what I'm dealing with here, we've got, this is really cruddy. That's going to need to be addressed. So that's what I will do there. Get some new radiator hoses on, and that's a non-genuine one up there. So good. Okay. Thanks for watching.